Ladies and gentlemen, we did a podcast earlier this week talking about Toronto's devastating loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning. All the credit to the Leafs. It was a good series. They had a great year. But, ladies and gentlemen, there was an individual in Woodstock, New Brunswick, where my wife works, and he was convinced, literally convinced, that Toronto was going to win the Game 7 and lift whatever curse there was. He couldn't even say these 2 words or 3 words, because you say it out loud, it's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times and Michael Keaton might come back to play Batman. So today, ladies and gentlemen, to explain why Toronto has never won a playoff series in 20 years, never won a Stanley Cup in 55 years, and never won anything significant besides a few semifinal appearances since 1978, it's the Harold Ballard curse. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, I know who Harold Ballard is, and you're saying, who the heck is Harold Ballard? Now, according to a very interesting essay by Jeff Borsuk on editorandleaf.com, when he lost to Columbus 2 years ago in another first-round series, he talked about some of the particulars of the curse of Harold Ballard. Now, according to his research, a popular belief is that the team was cursed by their former owner, Harold Ballard. He was the principal franchise owner from 72 to 1990, and this curse isn't connected to any specific event, but rather a tenure filled with awards of behavior. Anti-immigrant, we had a pedophile ring at Maple Leaf Gardens that he either knew about or didn't stop. He messed over the Beatles over a series of concerts back in the day, but he was mostly involved as well in the operations of Maple Leaf Gardens before it became principal owner. Now, some of my relatives I don't get along with, and I tend to ignore them, but he would never ignore them. In one case, he's been fighting with his family for years. Now, according to published reports, this is a man who once called his own daughter a reptile. Didn't say what type of reptile. In fact, Ballard referred to his children as the 3 reptiles, and he cut them out of his will, keeping them from inheriting any of the $100 million in value he had occurred. Now, let's put this in perspective. They won the Stanley Cup in '67, technically were the team in the 1960s. At that point, they won 62, 63, 64. Davey Keon, Tim Horton, Red Kelly, all the key players were there for a Stanley Cup run into the 60s. With the expansion 12, Toronto was in a good position to expand. Now, but Ballard's son, Bill Ballard, who's always been very honest about his father, gave the best explanation as to why his father cursed the Maple Leafs. My dad once told me that he would run the club from his grave, Bill explained, and that's what he's doing. Now, Ballard was a tremendously meddlesome owner who hired and fired 13 coaches and 6 GMs over the duration of his tenure. He was so disliked that when Paul Henderson, our hero of 72, phoned his former teammate Frank Mihaljevic to ask for career advice, he was told to get away from Toronto because with Harold Ballard, the Maple Leafs will never win the cup again. It's why Henderson left the WHA and told Ballard to take an offer for a new Leafs contract and shove it up his arse. Now, Ballard may have been the worst owner professional sports has ever seen. Well, yes and no. There's Marchot and Steinbrenner and all that. He is responsible, of course, for the severed relationship between the Toronto Maple Leafs and their best ever player, the man at the top of the franchise's very own greatest 100 players list. Ballard would chide his team's captain, Dave Keon, through the media and refused to give him a well-deserved raise. Now, some people see it as the curse of Davey Keon, but Harold Ballard created Davey Keon's hatred for Toronto, so it's the son of the curse. Now, Ballard's most dastardly act were ensuring that the club did not re-sign Keon after his contract expired and demanding such an exorbitant compensation for another team signing him that the other NHL clubs couldn't touch the highly ranked forward. Now, this forced Keon to leave the NHL and play in the WHA. He finally found his way back to the NHL when the Hartford Whalers, with his the great co-teammates Gordie Howe, Andre Lacroix, and Bobby Hull, were absorbed by the league as part of the WHA NHL merger in the 79-80 season. Now, this poor treatment wasn't unique to Keon. The irascible owner called Darryl Sittler a cancer and tried to trade him despite the captain being the franchise's all-time leading scorer. Since Sittler had a no-trade clause in his contract, Ballard had that utter genius GM Punch Imlach, the junior Ballard, ship away Sittler's best friend, Lanny McDonald, in late 1979. Now, Ballard was equally terrible to Oilers staff. His treatment of Hall of Fame coach Roger Nielsen might have been the worst. He fired Nielsen, a very respected bench boss, during the 79 season, but brought him back just days later after hearing complaints from his players. What I heard, he said he weren't going to play if Nielsen didn't come back. Now, Ballard eventually told reporters that a mystery man would be coaching the team and direct Nielsen to wear a paper bag over his head before the start of his first game back behind the bench. The coach refused, and he was fired for a second time at the end of that season. In case there was any question about Ballard's character, a criminal court made clear that he was not a great person. In 1969, he was charged in 1972 at age 69. He was convicted of 48 out of 50 charges brought against him for tax evasion and fraud. But it gets better. This is not even the worst part of him. He had misused $205,000, which included taking $62,000 from the Gardens in order to remodel his home. Facing up to 20 years in prison, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive 3-year terms in that beautiful home away from home, Millhaven prison. He also ended up serving just 1 year there and later became a owner of the Maple Leafs. Now, stories about Ballard could last for days. He trapped Ted Huff, the executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, in a sauna until the Maple Leafs were given an extra $1 million for TV rights. Ballard sold tickets as well, and this is not big in Beatles lore, might be the first time you heard it. Sold tickets to 2 Beatles shows, even though their agent had only agreed to 1. In doing so, he forced the band to play the second show. During the event, Ballard had the water fountains and air conditioning turned off so that he could sell more drinks at the concession stands. Now, I have my own Ballard story, and I say this with all great sincerity. I have a cousin in the Toronto region who visits Ballard's grave on a regular basis, not to praise him, but just to be sure he's dead. Now, there's a very famous scene in Star Trek The Next Generation where I think the leader of the Klingons has been poisoned by his blood wine. I think it's Kimpek. And there's a scene where they're checking if the Klingon leader is dead, and it's pain sticks, So you put it in the belly. There's a scene where the second challenger for the leadership kind of holds the stick a little bit too longer. My dad said, I was watching the episode at the time, he said that would have been great for Harold Ballard's family. So take it as you will. Now, was Harold Ballard one of the worst people in Canadian history? We've had murderers, rapists, all kind of different people. He is probably the worst of his type. Because if you ask Harold Ballard, who's the greatest Maple Leaf in history, he'd say himself. In that friggin', not say gondola, but that little thing they used to watch the games at the old garden with, I think it was King Clancy, every fucking Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of seeing Montreal in the Forum, we had to see those 2 dicks hanging out. But the Toronto media, they kind of petted him. He was good to sell papers. But the man was a complete moron. Not only was he a moron, he was a racist and a misogynist. If you look at the old Fifth Estate tapes and the interviews, I think he would... I can imagine there's waitresses from here to Windsor, Ontario, because he didn't go much to Quebec. He would probably promise a waitress a certain extra tip if the waitress provided a service for him. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to think about this, when Toronto loses, each year has its own reason. But the big cloud is Harold Ballard. He has caused the mound to be muddy. And like I said, you can't pitch in baseball with a muddy mound. Every time Toronto takes the ice, that aura of Harold Ballard, how he misused the franchise. The franchise right now is not getting misused. It's hard for a Canadian team, any Canadian team, to win 4 series. But the Harold Ballard curse, it makes you wonder. I mean, the curse of Bambino. See, the Bambino was never a bad person. Yes, he was a little bit off the rails sometimes with the women and the eating and stuff like that. But Harold Ballard, like I said, you walk into a room and you can feel a person before you met him, that person's trouble. That's Harold Ballard. I was 4 years old, I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen. I saw him on TV and my father noticed I was kind of twinging a little bit and said, Jeffries, what's wrong? He said, that's a bad guy. I was 4 years old, I knew this. That's my Ballard story. And I'm 56 now. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with our podcast, let us know with a like, comment, or subscribe. Have a good day. Bye.